What if that tiny, seemingly insignificant piece of fabric or cardboard, the one you probably rip off your new clothes and toss without a second thought, was actually a quiet villain in the fashion industry's environmental story? Today we're exploring something genuinely overlooked: clothing labels and hang tags. You sent us some fascinating material for this, including key insights from an article by Momin Ghazouani titled Beyond Textiles: Sustainable Clothing Labels in the Circular Economy. So, our mission today is to unpack why these minor items are, well, actually a massive part of fashion's environmental burden, where current efforts might be falling short, and crucially, some truly innovative solutions that are beginning to emerge. We're really going for that aha moment that makes you look at every clothing tag differently from now on.
It's definitely an essential deep dive. I mean, while our collective attention, and rightly so, often focuses on the main event, the textiles themselves, the massive manufacturing processes, these secondary materials, these labels and tags, they're a critical, often unseen piece of the overall sustainability puzzle. They represent a significant gap, really, both in our understanding and in current policy. We're going to dive into the science, the data, and those often missed policy gaps today.
Absolutely. We're talking about a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about an impact you maybe never knew existed, with some surprising facts that I think will completely shift your perspective. You'll never see that little bit of material the same way again, I promise. Okay, let's unpack this quiet villain. Let's begin by just trying to grasp the sheer scale of this challenge, because that's often where the real surprise lies, isn't it? The global fashion industry churns out literally millions, maybe billions of garments every single year. And what does every single one of those garments inevitably come with? You guessed it, a label, a hang tag, or sometimes both. It sounds so small, so trivial, right? But when you multiply that by billions, well, the cumulative effect of these tiny items is absolutely staggering on a global scale.
It truly is. And when we talk about cumulative impact, we're talking about resource consumption that's frankly out of proportion to the perceived value of the item. Let's start with water, for instance. Producing virgin, meaning non-recycled, cardboard for labels uses about 2.5 to 7 tons of water for every single ton of cardboard produced. That's a lot of water. And if we zoom out further, the paper industry as a whole accounts for something like 33% of total industrial water consumption in Europe alone. That data is from the European Environment Agency back in 2021.
Wow, hold on. 33% of industrial water just for paper. Just think about that for a moment. Nearly a third of all industrial water in Europe consumed not for the garment itself, but for something we're designed to rip off and discard almost immediately. It feels like a profound misallocation of resources hidden in plain sight. It completely upends our perception of minor waste.
But okay, it's not just water for cardboard, is it? What about plastic labels? We see so many of those too. What are their environmental implications? Precisely. Plastic labels, which are incredibly common, often made from polypropylene or polyethylene, they're heavily reliant on fossil fuels for their production. The energy required and the subsequent greenhouse gas emissions generated are really substantial. Estimates suggest that every single kilogram of plastic produced generates approximately 6 kilograms of carbon dioxide.
6 kilograms of CO2 for every 1 kilogram of plastic.
Yep. So whether it's water-intensive paper or fossil fuel-intensive plastic, these seemingly tiny items collectively contribute significantly to resource depletion and carbon emissions long before they even reach the store shelf or, your wardrobe.
And then after all that resource-intensive journey just to create this tiny piece of material, what's its ultimate fate? For most of us, it's a quick snip and then it just vanishes from our minds, right? Straight into the bin.
Exactly. And that bin is often just the first step on its journey to becoming a significant and largely unmanaged contributor to our global waste crisis. The discarded label becomes part of a much larger, rather grim statistic. A Unity report from 2022 highlights that approximately 85% of all textile waste, and that includes these secondary materials like labels and tags, is sent directly to landfills or incinerated.
85%.
Yeah, it's huge. And if we're talking about plastic labels, this often leads to pervasive microplastic pollution, which, as we know, has widespread environmental consequences for our ecosystems, even our food chain. And if they're incinerated, well, they become sources of greenhouse gas emissions.
And here's where it gets even more complicated and frankly, a bit sneaky, isn't it? A lot of what looks like a simple recyclable cardboard label isn't simple at all.
That's absolutely right. Many cardboard labels are actually coated with thin plastic layers. Brands do this to enhance their appearance, make them feel maybe a bit more luxurious, or improve durability.
Right, so they don't rip easily.
Exactly. But this coating, this thin layer of plastic, renders them non-recyclable in most standard paper recycling streams. So a seemingly eco-friendly choice, oh good, it's cardboard, can still end up complicating waste management efforts and adding to pollution. It's almost a deceptive practice, like a kind of sustainability mirage.
A sustainability mirage, I like that phrase. So not only are we discarding these in massive volumes, but even when we think we're making an eco-friendly choice with cardboard, we could still often be contributing to pollution because of these hidden plastic coatings. It truly feels like a significant blind spot, doesn't it? Especially given how much the EU, for instance, talks about sustainability. So what specific regulatory gaps exist that allow these secondary materials to largely escape scrutiny?
It's a massive regulatory omission, frankly. Despite the growing push for environmental policies, particularly within the European Union, the focus remains overwhelmingly on the core textiles and the main production processes. Secondary materials like labels, they're largely unaddressed. For instance, the EU's Comprehensive Strategy for Sustainable and Circular Textiles, introduced in 2022, it doesn't include any mandatory standards specifically for these secondary materials.
Really? None at all.
No mandatory standards. This means there are no binding EU regulations that require companies to use recycled or biodegradable materials in label production.
And it gets worse, right? I read there's no requirement to even disclose what's actually in them.
Exactly that. There's no requirement for companies to distinguish between virgin and recycled content in their labels, which completely undermines any attempt at true transparency for consumers. I mean, how can you make an informed choice if you don't have the basic information? A Greenpeace study from 2021 found that a staggering 60% of major European brands do not disclose the proportion of recycled materials in their labels.
60%. That's nearly 2/3 of major brands essentially operating in the dark on this specific issue. That feels quite deliberate. And this lack of clear regulation, it can lead directly to what many are now calling greenwashing, can't it? Where brands make what seem like eco-friendly choices, like, as we discussed, swapping plastic for cardboard, but they often miss the bigger picture, and we, the consumers, are none the wiser. So it's not just a blind spot, but almost seems like an active... Okay, I can see the logic from their side, but...
But, as you implied, these are pretty superficial measures that often fail to deliver meaningful environmental benefits. Remember that Zero Waste Europe study from 2022 we mentioned?
Yeah, the 70% figure.
Exactly. It revealed that 70% of cardboard labels used in the fashion industry still contain these plastic coatings or other chemicals that prevent effective recycling. It basically means the perceived environmental benefit of cardboard over plastic is largely negated in many cases. Consumers are sort of led to believe they're supporting a sustainable product when the hidden reality is quite different and much less green.
I was just thinking about a time I bought a really expensive jacket, and the hang tag was this beautiful, thick cardboard. I remember feeling good about it, thinking, at least it's not plastic. Learning about these coatings now makes me realize I was probably just recycling hope, not cardboard. It's almost like the fashion industry's version of a check engine light that nobody's actually paying attention to, isn't it?
That's a perfect analogy, actually. It's a systemic issue hidden right there in plain sight.
Indeed. It sounds like a truly intractable problem, almost like a Gordian knot of waste and regulation. But thankfully, the story doesn't end on that bleak note. In fact, your sources highlight a truly ingenious initiative that offers a powerful counter-narrative and a real glimmer of hope: Unity SSA. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yes, Unity SSA truly represents a significant step forward in sustainable design, embracing circular economy principles right from the ground up. Their whole approach is fundamentally different from the status quo. Instead of relying on virgin materials, they utilize industrial wood residues, essentially, stuff that would typically be discarded as waste from other industries, like sawdust or wood chips. They use that to produce lightweight and incredibly durable labels.
Wow, so turning waste into resource.
Exactly. This drastically reduces the reliance on new raw materials, which is huge.
Yeah.
The World Resources Institute back in 2021 highlighted that just by using wood residues like this, we could potentially cut tree consumption by up to 40% in the paper industry.
40%, that's phenomenal. And it's not just about what they start with, the raw material, but also what they put into it, right? The composition.
Precisely. Unity SSA also incorporates advanced plant-based polymers. This is a category of bioplastics, things like Mater-Bi, which are derived from renewable resources like cornstarch. They use these to enhance the label's moisture resistance. But the key thing is, this choice means they're not just fully biodegradable at the end of their life, but they often require significantly less energy and produce fewer greenhouse gases during their production compared to traditional fossil fuel plastics. So it addresses the life cycle impact from start to finish. It's really about designing for the end of life right from the very beginning.
That's such a comprehensive approach, and this isn't just a minor improvement. The benefits sound truly substantial across the board. These Unity SSA labels you mentioned result in a reduction in carbon emissions by up to 30% compared to traditional labels. That figure's backed by research from the Journal of Cleaner Production in 2023. And it's not just emissions, they also achieve a 50% reduction in water consumption. I mean, these are not incremental changes, these are significant numbers that really move the needle. What's more, this initiative directly contributes to achieving key United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal 12, Responsible Consumption and Production, and Goal 13, Climate Action. It feels like a holistic win.
And beyond these crucial environmental wins, there's also a significant consumer-facing advantage, which is absolutely vital for market adoption and, well, success. Unity SSA labels aren't just sustainable. Apparently, they offer a luxurious texture and a high-quality aesthetic appeal that can genuinely enhance the overall consumer experience.
So they feel nice too.
Exactly. This isn't just about being green for green's sake. It actually feels premium. And get this, a McKinsey & Company study from 2022 showed that a significant 65% of European consumers actually prefer products with sustainable packaging. So brands that adopt initiatives like Unity SSA aren't just doing good for the planet, they're gaining a real competitive edge in a market that's increasingly environmentally conscious. It's actually a smart business decision as well as a responsible one.
That's a powerful combination, truly sustainable and desirable for consumers. And it's important to note, while Unity SSA is an incredible example, the industry is starting to wake up more broadly, isn't it? We're seeing other innovations emerge too, like soluble labels that simply dissolve in water during the first wash, or even NFC-enabled labels designed for reuse in digital product passports. The industry is moving, but Unity SSA really stands out for its comprehensive circular approach. Okay, so we've seen the hidden problem, the alarming regulatory gaps, and now inspiring concrete solutions like Unity SSA. What does this all mean for the future then? And what can actually be done to scale these kinds of solutions across the entire industry? What are the next steps to move beyond just a glimmer of hope to widespread change?
Well, to truly close these regulatory gaps and foster wider adoption, the article we looked at proposes a clear and pretty actionable path forward, primarily through legislative recommendations. First and foremost, there's a strong call for mandatory standards. This means developing actual regulation that would require companies to use recycled or biodegradable materials in label production, and importantly, specifying minimum percentages for recycled content. This moves beyond just voluntary measures and sets a baseline for everyone, preventing that sustainability mirage we talked about earlier.
Okay, so no more hiding behind vague claims or coded cardboard, potentially.
That's the idea. The standards would need to address that directly. Secondly, establishing robust certification programs is seen as essential. These programs would offer independent sustainability certifications for companies that adopt advanced solutions like Unity SSA. This not only enhances transparency and builds trust for consumers, but also encourages healthy competition among brands to meet higher environmental standards. Brands that truly invest in sustainability would be recognized, and those that don't, well, be much clearer.
Makes sense. Verification is key.
Thirdly, the recommendations include offering tangible financial incentives. Things like providing tax exemptions or other financial support for companies that invest in sustainable production technologies like those used by Unity SSA can significantly accelerate their adoption. It helps make the transition more economically viable for businesses, helping overcome that initial potential cost hurdle.
Right, greasing the wheels for change. And finally, it circles back to us, the consumers, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There's a vital need for enhanced consumer awareness. Launching targeted awareness campaigns, like this conversation hopefully contributes to highlight the importance of sustainable secondary materials, would empower consumers. By truly understanding the impact of these small items, we can increase demand for environmentally responsible products, which in turn pressures brands to adopt more sustainable practices. It's really a multi-pronged approach, tackling the issue from policy, industry, and consumer perspectives, all working together ideally.
That's a fantastic roadmap for action, addressing everything from production right through to purchasing. It feels like from what seemed like just a tiny overlooked piece of cardboard or plastic, we've uncovered a truly significant environmental challenge. We've identified these crucial regulatory blind spots and then discovered groundbreaking innovations like Unity SSA that offer real hope for more circular fashion economy. It really does make you rethink what you just snip off and discard without a second thought, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the key takeaway is that these secondary materials are not just some small, negligible part of the supply chain. They are, in fact, a key factor in achieving a truly sustainable future for the fashion industry as a whole. The shift toward genuine sustainability here requires a really concerted effort, encompassing both stringent legislative action and informed, growing consumer demand. Every single piece matters.
So the next time you buy a piece of clothing, maybe just take a moment to actually look at that label or hang tag. Read it. Feel it. What questions does it raise from you about its journey, about its ultimate fate? What could it potentially tell you about the brand's true commitment to sustainability? Perhaps it's not just about what you wear, but also about what you peel off and where it truly goes. We hope this deep dive has given you plenty to think about.